What do you do when you can't avoid debt? In other words, when the numbers that you dread, the ones that you really don't want to face, aren't in your present and they're not in your past, but they're coming up in your future. I'm Ruth, and this is my rather unconventional debt confession. So, debt confessions are all about telling our story and facing up to our financial truths, right? For my story, I'm going to take you back about 2 or 3 years. I was and am a single mom of, at that time, a college-age son. I'm a public school teacher, and I own my own home. I paid my bills. I was sometimes irregular about it, and I avoided thinking too hard about my finances if I didn't have to. I had enough. I wasn't an extravagant spender. I had enough. I had one credit card that I would use if we went on any big vacation, which we didn't do often, usually once every 2 or 3 years, and I would slowly pay it off, and then I'd put the next vacation on it. I had a savings account that I had money in, and I had a really reasonable mortgage because I've been in this house for quite a while. It sounds good, right? But I wasn't planning for things. And when bigger expenses would come, I would pay that out of my savings. And I just say, well, it's always worked out before. I'll just, everything's going to be fine. Well, there came a point, and this is very true today, as much as it was a couple of years ago or a few years ago, there came a point where the money didn't seem to go as far as it used to. And this was getting small raises or, occasional raises. I would take things out of the savings account, but I wasn't putting as much back in. And eventually it was going down and down. And it was starting to drop lower than my comfort level. And I wasn't finding ways to rebuild it. And then there were things that came up with my home. I live in an older house. It is 80 some odd years old. I had the house, and it's older. It's got wood siding. We painted it when we first moved in. And when I say we, I mean my ex-husband and I. And then I stayed in the house when we divorced. We painted it, but paint doesn't last forever. And I don't think we did as good a job as we should have in prepping it. So the paint's gotten ragged. And I've known it needed painted for a while. And I just am reluctant to spend that money because everything's more than you expect it to be. And I even made a plan to have somebody paint it, and then their little arrangement fell through, and I was refunded the money that I had paid them. And so, that worked out for me. There was no harm, no foul, but my house still isn't painted. Then it got to be an issue where I changed my car insurance to another company when I added my son, because any of you who have a teenage male driver know that adding them to car insurance can be traumatic. It is. And I found another insurance company that gave me a much better rate than the one that I had forever. But you get the best rate if you bundle your cars in your home, of course. He just gave me the heads up, though, that when they write a homeowner's policy, they have an underwriter that comes out and looks over the property. And if there's any little cosmetic stuff that needs to be fixed, you need to get that done now. This is turning into a much longer story than I meant for it to, but bear with me. I'll try to make it shorter. When I'm working, when it's the school year, I sometimes just don't have the bandwidth to get everything done in the after hours. And so I drag my feet. I also knew that there was some woodwork that needed to be replaced, and that was going to cost a little bit. So I needed to get that done before I had the painting done. Well, when I called somebody to do that, it turned out there were some foundational issues, or not the foundation, but where the wood sits on the foundation. So that turned into something that cost me basically more than half of the budget that I had for painting the house. So this is where I was 2 years ago, realizing that there was probably no way to get the things done that I needed done on my house without borrowing money. And I am really, my mortgage is finally getting into that territory where it looks, I mean, I owe less on my house than most people owe on their cars. It's really good. And I'm going to show you all of that. So in the middle of the year, 2022, I sat down and I wrote out my debt picture. Here's what I have. Okay. This is my overall debt picture form that is used by the Budget Mom on YouTube, Instagram, and she has a blog too. She has so many forms. Most of you know this already. She has so many forms for free. She has a free library of resources. It's incredible. And she has so many videos that show you how she uses them. So this was what I saw and how I was able to say, okay, I need to sit down and do this. And truthfully, I couldn't do this when I started budgeting. I had to do this a couple of months later. I started budgeting in June or July, but I couldn't do this until September because debt is emotional and it feels shaming and it feels guilty. And so this was tough for me. I've just covered up the exact names of the creditors. These are my numbers. This is the sheet that I used in mid-September. This is a medical clinic. I did not know that I had a charge from them in collections because I avoided opening my mail. I didn't want to answer my phone. I just didn't want to hear it. Head in the sand is a real thing. I know it's not a good strategy, but it was mine. So I found out that I had $139 in collection. So I put that as a top priority. If I was going to borrow money, I needed to have a good credit score, which I'm going to talk about too. This was for Quest Labs, basically. They do the blood work for any of the clinics around here. This is probably blood work that I had done for either an annual wellness visit or for a specialty visit, but they had turned it over. They're quick to turn it over to collection. My termite and pests, I had a contract for quarterly, and I hadn't paid for my last visit and was trying to figure out how I was going to pay for these visits because things were coming up. This was about the time that my son moved back in with me, and I was starting to look at my debt picture and really panicking about my savings and thought, I want to put stuff in savings and not. So I needed to get this paid off, and I stopped that service for then, and I haven't picked it up again. This was a medical bill for my son. This was, I believe, past due medical bill for the actual clinic that I see for my, it's connected to a hospital here. This was a charge for my annual oncology visit. I am a breast cancer survivor, and I would pay, and then the labs would come through, and I wouldn't see them again for a year. So they were really good. That was never turned in anywhere. This one, what was this one? It's a collection for, this was from my surgery when I had breast cancer. And it is a hospital in our state capital, and they had attached my state income tax refunds to this, and it had been paying off a little bit at a time, but I wanted to deal with that. This was from 2 clinics in another city, one where I get my mammogram, one where annually, and one where I think I was an endocrinologist. So I owed them money. This was for medical equipment. This is the only credit card that I have. And I said that I only put travel on this. I did. But any of you who have a high school junior or senior who is a musician will know that if they start looking at colleges, and they want to look at more than one, and they're hoping to get scholarships, you have to audition in person, or at least before the pandemic you did. So it turned out that, before I'd quite paid off our last big trip, I was paying for 3 or 4 trips out of state to go visit colleges and do auditions. And so I ran that up close to $4,000. Been paying it more than the minimum ever since then, but I just was paying it for years. And then lastly, this is my mortgage. This is what it was down to in mid-September. Like I said, almost less than most people have as a car payment. These were the only two things that had any interest or a minimum payment, okay? By the time I got to mid-September of the next year, I had paid off one. The Quest Labs one, I had paid part of it. When I went to sign on to pay it, there was only part of it there. So I think it was missing $9 and something. I ended up finding that this year, but that was the only part that so I paid off all of that. I paid off the termite company. I paid off my son's medical bill. This one here, I wasn't sure of. I only found $44 when I went online. So I was not sure if it was completely paid off. Turns out it has, because I've never found any more. My oncologist, when I went in for my annual visit, I paid half of the balance, but then there was some more added because of lab work. So that changed to $118. Okay. And the lab, I had another charge for a wellness visit, so that was $71.48. My Discover was down to $607. I had used income tax refund money and maybe even a bonus to pay it down a little more aggressively. My mortgage was down to $23,000. That was mid-September of last year. This is my current, okay? I filled this out January 1st. I paid off my oncologist completely. A lot of this I did either a little bit in January and February or with my, tax refund. It wasn't a big tax refund, but it was enough. My credit card was down to $412 at the beginning of January. I've paid that off. And my mortgage was at $22,000. It is now down to $21,000. Now, Quest Labs, I got another bill from them in January because I had blood work done in December. Then I didn't get another one. I was trying to find the original one, couldn't find it. So I called them, and she said, it looks like it has been sent back to be reconsidered for insurance, so it is not current. But you have this old one for $9.45. So I paid that. And like I said, since this is now current and not old debt, I consider that except for my mortgage, I am paid off. I'm debt-free. This will be, going forward, this won't be debt. This will be medical expenses. So the good news is I'm debt-free, except for my mortgage, which is really getting low. The bad news is, do you see how low this mortgage is? I'm afraid some of the work that I need to have on my house might double it. And that's not what I wanted. First of all, let's talk about credit score, because I tracked that as well. When I started this was in August of 2022, and I have one, you saw the things that were in collection, but I had, only one of those was on my credit score, but I had one thing when I bought a refrigerator several years ago, and I financed it, a year, no interest, and just didn't pay close attention to the terms of that and didn't pay it regularly. I don't even want to go into it. I swear that I have done that before and didn't have to make regular monthly payments, but I didn't understand that this was a credit card, and if you don't pay something monthly, you are in trouble. Anyway, they ended up making me an offer to settle for less, and I did that, and I almost wish I hadn't, but it's on my credit. So, but as I started paying this stuff off, it started going up, and by the time I got into the place where I had paid off everything in collections and I paid down everything, by the end of that year, it was starting to really show some growth. I'd gone up 64 points. This is on the FICO score that I get with my Discover card. Again, this is a form from the Budget Mom. Okay, it's one of her free resources. So I kind of did this. I started down here, and then I have some months that I wasn't tracking it at all, and I started a new one in January of this year. It's gone from 702 to 709. That's a TransUnion, it says on my Discover card. Equifax, I started checking the other ones. Equifax at 769, Experian 714, and I have little charts that say what does Experian consider good or very good or excellent, and what does Equifax consider good or very good or excellent, and I keep those up here. But just basically, I just want it to keep going up. I want it to keep going up. This one actually went down when I paid off my credit card. I've heard that can happen. So keeping an eye on it. But they sent me an email that said, even though your FICO score went down, your credit rating did not, so it should not affect your credit worthiness. Well, I'm going to have to trust them on that. So that's my debt picture. That's my credit rating, my credit score. Now I have to figure out how to, I not only need the house painted, but I recently had the insurance man come back out and give it a look and see what he thought would be a problem. He said, I think you might ought to look at your roof too. And I just wanted to cry. Because when doing that kind of non-foundation, that wood repair around the bottom where the framing of my house meets the foundation, there was a leak in a small, slow leak underneath my bathroom. I have a crawl space. And the plumber who came out, I think he spent 5 minutes looking and came out and said, oh, you need to rip out everything in your bathroom to the studs. Your subflooring's bad and you're going to... So, he's like, you're looking at $15,000 worth of work. And I don't know if he's right. I need to have somebody real look at it. I tell you what, I have original floors in those bathrooms, and if I have to rip that out, it's going to break my heart a little bit. And I have original cast iron tubs, deep cast iron tubs, not the clawfoot ones, the built-in ones, but they're so nice. Enameled cast iron. There's no way that bathtub's coming out except in pieces. So if they have to gut that bathroom, I guess I think I may just have them put in a shower. I have another bathtub, same kind of bathtub in the back where I don't need everything redone. But, I mean, seriously, a roof and a full repaint of a house that really badly needs it and work done on a subflooring and a bathroom? What do you think I'm facing? And I've been stuck there because I'm afraid of dealing with it. I know that I could get a home equity line of credit, or I can get a loan, or I could refinance. My interest rate isn't quite 5, so I didn't get it when it was down at the very, very lowest. I should have. But 5 is better than it, or 4.75, whatever it was. Let's see what it was. 4.875. That's better than it is now. So I hate to refinance the house. I also would like to retire at some point. Would like to retire with the mortgage paid if I can. That was always the plan, and I was on track for that. But now I have to add money to it. So, while I start out with good news, I end in the place where I see a lot of debt confessions and with people feeling scared and embarrassed. Is this my fault? I know I have an old house. Did I let it get in this shape? Should I have been doing more? It makes me anxious to undersell it. It makes me anxious. What should I do first? And I think, seriously, my homeowner's insurance is nearly double what it would be if I could switch. It is very high. Even people at the bank will go, man, that's high. So I need to get that done. And if what needs to happen first is the cosmetic stuff, the stuff on the outside, because the underwriter never comes inside, then I need to have probably the paint and the roof done first. I was praying for a hailstorm last week because we were expecting hail. Didn't get it. I probably need to do that first, but even that's going to be expensive. What, $10,000? Do I need to tie down those amounts first? Do I need to actually line people up to do the work and get estimates? How do I go about this, and how do I rely on the people? Because I have done a lot of work over the years in this house. We've replaced the electrical, the roof twice, the gas lines to the city, the plumbing lines to the city up under the house. We've done all of the things we should do to try put in new heating and air conditioning systems, everything we should. And through all that time, I've learned that there are some times that you can trust contractors, and sometimes it doesn't go well. So I'm scared, and I just want to be able to do this well. Do you have any suggestions? If you understand, please comment, please like, please consider subscribing. The next video I'm planning will be probably either a check-in with how my budget is going for the last part of March, or I'll start planning for April. If you're interested in that content, please subscribe, maybe hit the notification bell. I don't ever do that. But if you're one of those that likes notifications, hit the notification bell so you'll know when I'm posting something next. And I will leave you with my favorite question to ask, and one that helps me get through all the anxiety. What are you reading? Let's go read. Thanks. I'll talk to you soon.